In this lesson, we'll begin modeling the ductwork for our ground floor HVAC system. So let's get modeling. Okay, so now that all my equipment's in place, our next step is to get the ductwork in place. But before we do that, we need to let Revit know what's going on with our system. We need to establish a relationship between the components we just placed into our model. So to do that, I'm going to start off with all of my air terminals. So I'm going to click on one, and I'm going to up to the top right, we have a Create Systems tab, and under there's a Duct button. Click on Duct. When you do so, we'll get a window here where we can actually name our system here. So we definitely know we want this to be supply air since we're supplying warm and cool air to this environment. Let's give it a name here. I'm going to call this ground floor. Now that I have my title in place, I'll click OK, and you'll notice a dashed blue line around that element. That just lets me know that that is a system. So we need to edit this system and add more elements to it. So I'm going to edit the system underneath the System Tools tab. And let's add the rest of our registers here. Select this one, and the 3 that are in room 5. Perfect. Now that I have those selected, those are all my system elements. But within that system, there's also some equipment. And in our case, it's going to be our air handler unit. So underneath this Edit System, I'm going to go to Select Equipment. And I'm going to select my air handler unit. And once I have that set, I've got all the elements in my system selected. I'm going to click Finish System. So now I can highlight any one of those items and hit Tab, and you'll see the blue dash line going around the entire system that we just created. So now I can click on any element within that system, and I have a Layout tab here. Underneath there is a Generate Layout button. I really like this tool. So I'm going to click that, and I'll get a warning since I'm in floor plan view. That's just Revit letting me know we can't see the elements in this one. But I'm going to jump to 3D view. I'm going to let Revit do some thinking for me. And what Revit's doing here is generating a few layouts for me, and I have the ability to pick and choose between the layout type, the configuration within each type, and I can even make some adjustments if I need to. So let's get a little closer look and see what Revit has for us here. So here you can see all the components we set into place, our registers and our air handler. And this blue line represents our main. It's a large piece of duct coming out that feeds into our branches, which is represented by the green line. And when I come in closer, you'll see these thin yellow lines, and what they represent, they let me know that there's going to be an issue with this segment here. And more than likely, it's going to be an issue with the length of the segment. If your segments are too short, Revit will let you know by giving you a warning window, and you'll have to go back in and make some adjustments and get the right pieces placed. So I like to avoid all that extra hassle from the beginning by setting the parameters for what I want for my system, and then I'll go and see what Revit has, and I'll make the selection which has the least amount of errors but has the most efficient layout. So a balance of all those things is going to help me guide my decision. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my parameters, and then I can go see how those solutions work with my parameters. So I'm going to go to Setting, and what I want to do is I'm going to drop my main and my branches down to where I don't have that issue with these segments here, these vertical segments anymore. So I'm simply going to change the offset for my duct. So we'll start with the main here. So main, we'll change that 9 to a 6. We'll come to branch, and we'll change this 9 to a 6. And I just simply changed my offset. My offset is based on what's going on my basement floor. So when I click OK, you'll notice that adjustment's been made. I'll kind of orbit around, and you can see now I have a nice distance in between my registers and what's going on with my branches in my main. But I still have a few issues in this one, and I don't want to have to go around and make additional adjustments. So let's see what Revit has for me here. So under Solution Type, this is our network solution, and under that we've got 4 configurations. So I can flip through here. You can see all the different configurations. Then another solution type is the perimeter, and that's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a layout that goes around the perimeter of the space. Kind of follows the flow of your registers there, and we've got several options in there as well. And the last one is an intersections solution type. And again, I can thumb through these, and you can see exactly what's going on. There's a lot of intersections, so potential for some issues with corner pieces and things of that nature. So I'm going to see what's going on in the network solution type. I really like that one. And again, I'm going to look for something that has the least amount of errors and issues. So see what's going on with this number 2. And then to check this, I'm going to simply go in and orbit around and make sure I don't see any yellow warning lines anywhere, especially underneath my connection to my register and my branch or any of my corner pieces. So I think things are looking good, and I don't think we're going to have any issues with this system. And it looks pretty efficient the way it's set up as well. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to click Finish Layout. And like magic, we've just created a nice HVAC system for our ground floor. One last step we can do just to make sure we are operating in the most efficient way. We can highlight that entire system we just placed, and I can see if Revit has a better option as far as the sizing of my ducts. We've already had Revit help us out with the layout. Let's see if Revit can help me with some of the sizing. So I'm going to highlight my system. Under Analysis, I'm going to go to Duct Sizing, and I want to go by velocity. So I want a system that isn't so noisy. So I don't want my air going through my ducts at too high of a speed, because then you'll be able to hear it throughout the house. So we can actually drop this 1000 FPM, let's say maybe 600. So I'll say OK. And Revit will automatically make that adjustment. So what Revit did was probably made some of my ducts a little thinner since we decreased that flow. So we've just really quickly created a really nice HVAC system for the ground floor. And all our connections are nice. So in the next lesson, we'll learn how to finish this out with some insulation, and we'll even run a couple of reports on the system to make sure it's running efficiently.